Sure.
You just said something that grabbed my attention, which was that, yes, there's a lot less action here. Yes, that has something to do with Biden being elected. But then you said something that grabbed me, and he goes, but if Trump had won, we'd have more activity than we'd know what to happen. That says something, that there's a latent something there that was like, if it's down to one election and we were going to be exploding with activity versus not, was that what you were saying? Like, ha ha ha, Biden won, but if Trump had won, I know your ass would be here. Is that what you're saying? Like,
well, again, it's the Biden backlash. Because Biden won, it's like progressive California is feeling, right now at least, they're breathing a sigh of relief. They're justified in doing that, but they're not necessarily recognizing or being hit with the reality that nothing's changed yet, or nothing has changed, or maybe nothing's going to change. Now, if Trump had won, sad to say it, but our beloved fellow Californians who are gleefully bicycling by or skating by, feeling very confident and secure, would be in an absolute panic mode. These people would be terrified.
if Trump had won, you think Californians would not handle it well and be interested in it?
2016 is the example. In 2016, when Trump won, the California independence movement got a boost. If Trump was somehow reelected, and if Trump actually pulls off stealing the election through the courts or through some sort of gamesmanship, we're going to see a tremendous amount of Californians extremely angry, extremely upset. The system, because honestly, the system, to their mind, is going to have betrayed them. The system they were hoping for, that was going to come to their rescue, wasn't able to do it. Was too weak to do it. At that point, yeah, a Trump victory for the California independence movement in California, for Californians, yeah, 70% of the progressive California would be in panic mode. The fact that Biden won, they're not in panic mode. But it hasn't sunk in yet that nothing's changed. And that's really where it is. Nothing's changed. Congress is still Congress. In fact, actually, it's more Republican than it was before. The Senate has not flipped. All the predictions for Texas didn't work. The Supreme Court is still now grossly conservative. And you have what can only be called a pretty weak president at best in Joe Biden. It's like, so, yeah, a much deserved sigh of relief. But I have a feeling it's going to be short-lived.
It said, watch what time you come in, sure enough. And right after you just talked about how the election's coming in and whether it's going to be negative or positive. I just found that to be the universe speaking to this moment. You don't seem to feel that the Senate or the Supreme Court will realize that Trump was bad, even though he appointed them or they worked with him, and repudiate him and say, I'm done with his philosophy now that he has lost the election.
If Californians were wise, the barometer on this would be, does Biden prosecute? If Biden doesn't prosecute, we're going to end up in the same situation we were in back when Obama became president. Biden will reach across the aisle. He will try to heal the nation. He will try to embrace conservatives.
Like Susan Rice?
And they're not going to look at him like he's a nice guy. He's looking after us. He's trying to. They're not going to do this. They're going to take this as weakness. That's weakness.
Yeah.
And they're going to come back just as hard, just as bad as they did with Obama. And we're going to see Tea Party 2.0. This time it's going to be Tea Party 2.0 with assault weapons.
TNT party.
It's going to be vastly. It's going to be worse. Whatever Obama faced, it's going to be much worse with Biden. Because there is a reality that even the staunchest progressive has to recognize. Joe Biden is no Obama.
Right.
Joe Biden's no Obama. He is not. It's like we're not talking about an alpha dog in this race. He is not if he does not prosecute. If he doesn't prosecute Trump's family and the people who did all of these rotten deals, and then what hope is there for California?
Will be seen as a Neville Chamberlain.
He'll be seen as somebody who has no interest in the progressive values that Californians have. He'll be seen as a weak centrist Democrat, which is exactly what he is. I mean, it's not going to be his fault. He's going to be who he is.
Right.
But we're going to be screwed. Nothing will change. Nothing will improve. Nothing will get better. We'll have 2 years of gridlock, followed by a midterm where they will use that weakness. The Republicans will use the inability to get anything done against him. They will come in a red wave into Congress.
And also, what does it say that besides retaining control, the conservatives, what does it say that on top of the conservatives retaining control and many of the legislative abilities, the Supreme Court, etc., that I think you had a phrase, Joe Biden won by 2%.
Yeah, he won by 2%. That's
what does that mean to you?
Well, what it means is we're looking at a split here that says that 49% of America thought that authoritarianism, literally Nazi America, was not a bad idea. They thought it wasn't a bad idea. 4 more years of Trump signed them up. That's half the vote, and we had record turnout. So this is a very good sampling of what the country really looks like. 50% of America, and if you take California out of that mix, it really is a 50-50 split or better for conservatives. Thought that all of these things that were going on were a good idea. They're perfectly happy with kids in cages. They're perfectly happy with police brutality. They're perfectly happy with white supremacy, and they're perfectly happy with economic chaos, borrowing $1 trillion every year to prop up the economy. They're all good with this. That doesn't work. And if you add in the fact that most of the states, conservatives had gains in governors, gains in state houses across America. They're going to write the rules when it comes to the census. The gerrymandering that's going to take place is going to be on a scale we've never seen.
What do you mean by that? By gerrymandering? What is it that the Republicans can do now, and what does gerrymandering ensure that they have far into the future?
We'll use the more scientific term, redistricting.
Okay. What is that? People don't know what that means and how they can use that to power themselves and lock themselves into the future. Could you tell people what that is?
As you have a conservative Supreme Court with a conservative Supreme Court, who will not challenge redistricting. That means that basically after the census, lawmakers in the individual states will be able to redraw district lines to favor their parties and their beliefs. With these changes, changing the district lines to make sure that they don't lose elections ever again, that those majorities will be in place for at least a decade. So the states will be gerrymandered. If the states are gerrymandered, the redistricting will allow them to elect those people they want to elect. You will see conservatives in power for the next decade elected up and down. This doesn't bode well for California. This is bad for California. California values are going to now receive an entire decade of no ability to move the needle.
Is that, I mean, you're saying 10 years. Do you honestly believe, looking at this dispassionately, you're talking about Republicans locking in their ability to be in power for a full 10 years and there's nothing California can do about it?
No, you're right. I misspoke. What I should have said was 10 years minimum. A decade minimum of locked in. They'll lock it in. What would have to happen is that, again, another fight, another electoral battle, we have to rally 120% compared to the Republicans because we have to get around the redistricting. That means nationwide, across America, the battle that was fought to put Joe Biden in the White House is going to have to be fought in every district. It's going to have to go down in every state. It's going to have to go down in every county. To get around the redistricting would require overwhelming numbers. You can't emphasize how bad that will be, and that means that the situation we're in now, where the federal government can tell California whatever it wants, or can overturn anything that California wants to do
through the Supreme Court.
Through the Supreme Court, or legislatively through Congress and through.
Right.
Because if Biden is not successful in between 2020 and 2022, if you see what you normally do in a midterm election, what happens is that the ruling party usually takes a beating compared to the opposition party, and the opposition party. So you're looking at a probable red wave in 2022.
That's just historically
That's the pattern.
Yeah, so
that's the historical pattern.
Republicans took big gains now. They're probably going to win even bigger in the upcoming election. And between now and that term, they'll be doing the redrawing of lines, ensuring
that it's going to
the next 10 years.
Right. That
also allows the Supreme Court to stay conservative, never be challenged, and the Senate to be in their control, which means they can shut down all legislation for 10 years. Am I getting that right? 10 years
minimum.
Shutting down legislation for Tea Party style.
Tea Party style, yes. Tea Party for over.
Nothing Californians can do to fix that.
Because then what you will have is a redistrict nation 10 years out to the next census, having to wait until that data comes in and then start the fight to balance those districts again.
In the year 2030.
Yeah, and I'm looking at it going, how long do I have? How many decades is it going? Am I going to get to celebrate California independence on my 100th birthday? How long do we have to fight? Oh, well, what's going to happen in the rest of the country if California leaves?
What's going to happen to us?
What's going to happen to us if we stay? Yeah, how do we survive this? How do our values survive? How do we stay recognizably California?
Yeah, what's going to happen to us if we stay? What, honestly, tell us. Then we just continue to lose our laws.
We lose. We will lose in. We will lose in every. We will lose virtually in every Supreme Court battle. If we go into a Supreme.
If we stay, what happens?
If we stay and this goes down the way it looks like, we can guarantee that we will not be able to win in any federal court. We will be fighting federal court battles for the rest of the 21st century. We will not be able to pass legislation that benefits California in the federal government. Probably for the next 4 election cycles at least. With redistricting, we will never reach those progressive people in those states that now have Republican majorities. It means that we cannot win without overwhelming numbers, and the numbers just aren't there. This election showed that. Not if you have a 49-51 split.
Okay, well, that's certainly terrifying. Half of America outside of California likes Trump. The Trumpian ideas aren't going anywhere if you look at the way the Republicans are acting after the election. And Republicans are on set, as you just explained in detail, to retain and ensure a concretized level of authoritarian control for a decade into the future, and California can do nothing about it. Would you like a sticker?
Why do you guys want to separate?
Oh, that's the Grand Master right there. How? Why should we separate?
Why should we stay?
Yeah.
Let me. All right, you ask me a question, I'll ask you one. Let me. Final thought on this before I turn off the recording. Half the country voted for Trump. Half the country voted for authoritarianism. Half the country said this was all right. The question I have to ask to progressive Californians goes, I know you're feeling good now with Biden winning the election, and you have every right to feel that way. But what happens in 4 years if the Republicans come up with a candidate who isn't as incompetent as Trump? What happens if the Republican Party comes up with a well-spoken, smooth version of Trump? The margins wouldn't be there to keep him from winning the presidency and throwing us right back where we are now, or worse.